Welcome to Charted Territory, the podcast where personal growth meets adventure. Join us, Vicky and Kimmy, lifelong best friends and business partners, as we use human design as a map to navigate the uncharted paths of life. Together, we'll explore how to align with your true self and live a life filled with clarity, purpose, and flow. Whether you're feeling lost, curious, or ready for change, we're here to inspire, entertain, and guide you with practical insights, playful conversations, and plenty of laughs. Let the adventure begin. Welcome back to Charted Territory, a podcast about human design. My name is Kimmy. I'm a 6'2" emotional projector.
And I'm Vicky Garcia, and I'm a 2-4 self-projected projector.
And today we're going to talk about how we discovered human design and what brought us to this moment. It's a cool topic, no? What do you think?
This is a super cool topic.
This was
Look at my
your
face.
suggestion. This was your suggestion. You wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, because it's interesting, I think that for our possible audience out there,
Possible
and
audience,
also
our
for
real live audience that is listening to this right now.
yeah, that audience that we still don't know, but we will get to know eventually. Um, it can be interesting, and also because any person who's on a human design discovery journey, I think this side of the story is always interesting, like how you came across this or how did this came into your life. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's always interesting, and I don't know why, but I have like this feeling that maybe not for everybody, but like for most people, I'm 88% sure that there must be this kind of synchronicity in some
yeah,
part of the story. And in our
yeah,
case, it is a little bit like that too. So I would like to share it. And I think it's interesting, yes, to share. And also because through the story of how everything started falling into place, also people can see themselves there later on in the journey. Like because at the beginning you know nothing, and
yeah,
it's just like life, and that's so beautiful too.
yeah,
It's like business too, it's like or entrepreneurship, it's like so many other topics, and it's a journey of self-discovery and um unveiling one veil after another, and all this beautiful process that I think has a lot to do with like curiosity, or vital curiosity, as I like to call it. And that's so beautiful. So yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing to share.
yeah. For me, I loved when you suggested it because I think that it's a great way of getting to know us without it feeling boring. Not that our life or our story is boring, but it just
Yeah,
feels
like
relevant.
CV.
Exactly. It just feels more relevant to the audience because I assume that if you're here listening to this podcast, you are somewhat interested in human design. So I think it can provide a bit of insight on who we are as people and our stories and where we're from and details about our life without having to be like, I'm Kimmy. I was born in Madrid, Spain, and I'm 33 years old.
It
So
would be so nice, however.
maybe we can do a Q&A, and people can ask us
Yeah.
questions about our personal life. But I think keeping it, keeping it
How
on
are you
topic
so
is
amazing?
keeping it on topic is probably a good idea. And I guess I need to start because, funnily enough, I'm the one that introduced you to human design. Funnily enough,
Yeah,
and actually, this is a
yeah.
really
So
funny story. Like you can't not talk about this because it all comes down to this story of like why we're even here right now.
yeah, actually, it is like that. And that's
Yeah.
also a super beautiful thing to reflect on, like these full circle moments that sometimes take place in life. And like you also can feel grateful to be a witness of your own, I wouldn't say evolution, because I don't like that term, in the sense that I never think there's a lack of anything. So there's
Mhm.
not like an upgraded version of myself. it's just that in a process of ever expanding abundance, because abundance is, unbounded, you
Yeah.
can always further expand and expand and expand and expand. And so I think it's more a process of um, just expanding your personal limits in a way, and the conditioning. So getting rid of things that don't serve you or don't serve you anymore, because there's also things that have been useful, like for our emotional survival or whatever it was necessary at the point, but maybe are not necessary anymore. And so in that ever evolving process of you becoming more yourself, I believe there's never lack of anything at all, but you can always further expand. And so in that process of always expanding, it's beautiful to witness how one moment of the past also was like the starting a step in a way for another thing that you couldn't have, I don't know, like even imagine at that point, and however it's happening. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. So
So your turn.
starting with me. So I was living in Spain in a little city called Valencia, if you've heard of it. Super nice. And I was building my business at the time. So, um, also interesting part of the story because in this case it's relevant. So our parents, Vicky and my parents have been business partners for
I don't
35
know, like
years.
30, almost 35 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, 35 years. They both have independent businesses with a company called Amway, which is a multi-level marketing company. So that is why we know each other since we're so young because our parents, like I said, are business partners. So we kind of grew up
Since
together.
birth.
Especially those, yeah, since birth, especially those early years. Later things got a bit more distant, but those early years were definitely a lot of this.
Yeah, yeah, because we were, like these kids that only had fun. So we were
Yes.
always just having fun and playing
Exactly.
the Lion
Together.
King and
Also, funny enough, so our us siblings, so we are all kind of
yeah,
back to back. So it's my older
concatenated.
brother. Yeah, so my older brother, then Vicky, then me, then Vicky's younger sister, then my younger brother, and then Vicky's younger brother. So we're all kind of like 1 year, kind of like
Yeah,
it's really
almost one
funny.
year apart from another. Yeah.
And then there's Kelly, my little sister who was born 11 years later. She doesn't count.
Poor Kelly.
We don't care about her. No, just kidding. We love you, Kelly. So anyway, so I was living in Valencia, Spain, and I was building my business in within the Amway business. So I sponsored under my parents, and I was building the business in Spain in Valencia. And I wasn't having a lot of success. I would say I was definitely having some success, but like not what I wanted, if
You
that
were
makes sense.
doing a lot of effort.
I was
So yeah.
doing a lot of effort. I was putting in a lot of work. I was doing what I was supposed to do, but it just wasn't flowing. It wasn't really working for me, and I was getting really frustrated. So randomly through a Facebook message, a Facebook group that I was in, someone posted about looking for a product, a specific product. It was like, I don't remember if it was that she was feeling tired and was looking for vitamin recommendations, or if she literally was asking for, I want to take a multivitamin. I don't remember. Anyway, I commented on her post and I said, hey, I don't know if you know about this brand called Nutrilite. They have this multivitamin, which is really amazing, called Double X. You can try it. It's literally a game changer, especially if you're feeling fatigued. And she commented and she said, wow, I've been looking for the double X for years. My mom used to sell Amway products when I was younger and I grew up with the products, but she stopped and now I didn't know where to find them anymore.
Classic, right? So we connected and we met up one day to have a chat and obviously give her the product and everything. And we started talking, and she's a life coach. Crystal, if you listen to this, hey, shout out. This all started because of you. She's a really, really lovely human being, extremely uh, magical is really the word that comes to mind to describe her. And we really connected in that moment. And so months or weeks, days later, I don't remember, we met up again. And I think I was telling her about the Amway business. And at some point she stops me and she goes, Kimmy, when were you born? And I was like, that's a really weird question. And I was like, well, this day, this day at this time. And she just goes, okay, let me check something. And she goes, hmm, yeah. Has it ever happened to you that,
No, we do that all the time.
that? And I was like,
Mhm.
it all makes sense now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so funny. You did it so good. Yeah.
Um, and she said, yeah, Kimmy, you're a projector. And I was like, great. I don't know what that means. She said,
Good
yeah.
for me.
It's like- She's like, has it ever happened to you that you are trying to talk to someone about the business and you feel instant rejection from that person, like they don't want to hear from you, or because you're trying to share something, but you haven't really been asked to. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, has it ever happened to you that in moments where you're really not looking for anything and you're just kind of there, maybe you're even annoyed that people are asking you about like your business or whatever, what you do for a living, and you just kind of like blurted out like, yeah, whatever, I have a business and we do this and it works. And I was like, yes. She was like, yeah, it's because your strategy is wait for the invitation. So you can't impose your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions to people if they don't ask them. You need to wait until you are asked, and then that's when that person will be open to receiving that information. And I was like, whoa. That's crazy.
What a blessing.
And I was like, fuck me. Right? Because in that moment, really what I felt was bitterness.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, like,
Yeah. I feel
okay,
like,
very nice.
yeah, exactly.
Good
Like,
to
oh,
go.
you're like, of course, Me, fun fact, grew up in a family of pure generators and manifesting generators. I'm the only person in my family who is a projector. My father was a manifesting generator. My mother is a generator. Her current partner is a generator. And all of my siblings are manifesting generators. So, as you can imagine,
Intense.
the way that I grew up, what I was taught, not only through the business, right? Not only through the Amway business and the education program that our parents built, because it's built for generators, first of all, but also even within my own family unit was very if you ask my mother how to build the business, her answer is you just do it. And I'm like, that is
Yeah.
really not helpful.
From
Like, that is so
generators for generators.
exactly. And so I'd be like, so mom, I really need help. Like, I want to build a business, like mentor me, let's do this. And she'd be like, can you just do it? And I'm like, uh-huh. I'm gonna need more information on that because I try to do it and it doesn't work.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah. It's
So
so confusing
it's really confusing. And that moment
before
for
you
me,
know, before
it
you
just
actually know, like what's happening, like because that's the typical question of a projector. So why am I feeling like I'm putting all that much work or effort and it's not working at all, or it's working but it feels like pushing a mountain.
Yeah.
And furthermore, nobody seems to acknowledge how much effort I'm putting in.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like all of the things all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so to be honest, I don't remember anything else of the conversation I had with Crystal on that day because I know we talked for a lot longer about it,
Hmm.
but that's the part that sticks with me. That realization that we've talked about this a lot, Vicky, of like that confirmation that, oh, that makes sense because it wasn't
Yeah.
just words that make sense. I could feel it. When she said
Yeah.
those things, I was like, that's me. I connect with that. I feel that. I understand that. I intrinsically know in like the most inside part of my body that that was true. I
Yeah.
don't know how
Like,
to explain it. You know, it's just like
yeah, I
that
call
felt true.
that like resonance, you know? It's when I say if it resonates with you, it's this feeling. Like there is
Yeah.
something inside of you that
Like you're just
actually
like,
feels so
yes.
aligned and so like that's so right. Like this really touches me in a really internal, intuitive or instinctive way, if you want to say, or you get goosebumps or this kind of feelings that sometimes are like more physical and sometimes not that physical, like
Hmm.
but you can actually feel it inside of you, like this is for me, like yeah, this is actually me, or this is actually for me, like you really know, like there's an inner knowing that it's really really strong and it's really like hardwired into you,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
actually who you are. So when
Exactly.
some piece of information as powerful as that one comes across and finds you, like finally there's something
Yeah.
inside of you that's like you know. So yeah, it's a little bit like that, and you maybe don't exactly know what's happening, but you know that something big is happening right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so I don't know how long after, I don't know. I didn't call you or anything. It just happened at the conference, right? Like the next
Yeah,
time there was an Amway conference, Vicky and I were both there, and for a long time
the
the
convention.
conferences were the only time we would see each other for like years. So every 3 months it'd be like, hey, and then we'd just spend like don't tell anyone, but we'd spend sometimes a lot of time talking and a lot of time not in the conference, but no one needs to know that. That's just between you and me.
Yeah,
Mom, if you're listening to this,
the good sweet golden old times, you know.
yeah.
Not anymore, not for
And so
me.
not anymore. Not that hasn't happened in years. So anyway, so we were at the conference and I was telling her about this. I said, Vicky, you're not gonna believe it. Because I feel like you and I have had conversations before about the business and like why we felt sometimes, I don't know, I can't pinpoint any like
Yeah, how
specific feelings,
difficult
but
for
we've
us
had
it was
similar
this
feelings.
common ground that we found really difficult to come to the people with the offer without feeling super awkward about it. Like
Exactly.
we would feel much more natural just letting it flow by itself, instead of we pushing the idea of the business or a product or whatever like onto that person, and
Yeah.
like opening the, and
Forcefully,
this is a generator thing, you
forcefully.
know, like we've heard a lot of generators actually say something like you just get them and grab them and open their mouth and put the business into there or something like that, and for us it's like that's so horrible. Like I wouldn't ever do that, I wouldn't ever do that, like I cannot and I wouldn't ever do that. And for
Yeah.
example, for
Also,
me at the
it doesn't
moment it's
work.
funny.
It
Yeah,
doesn't work. Even if we tried to
doesn't
do that,
work.
it wouldn't work.
It doesn't work like for us, and maybe for a generator or maybe for a manifester sometimes that's super aligned and that's the exact precise thing that they have to do or that they have to hear or that they have to follow through, but not for a projector. Projectors out there, please never do this. So
I
yeah.
before we move on to the next part, I would love to ask you because I think for some people, this might be a point where they're like, well, I mean, let's be honest. No one likes being approached like that with anything, right? No one likes being force-fed information or like eh, given unsolicited advice or anything like that. Can you explain a bit what is happening energetically when we talk about this for someone that's
Yeah.
like, I don't get it. Do you know?
Actually, yeah, maybe giving unsolicited advice when you've not asked for it is not like a nice pill to swallow, but it depends. And so the approach can be very different. Like, for example, and also like it's not just as plain and simple as just unsolicited advice, because you can come across with a really nice idea, with a really nice approach, in a gentle manner or whatever, and be super well received. If you're a generator, for example, you can come across and say something like, hey, you know what, I noticed, whatever that's responding, so you saw something and that made you respond to it. And so maybe you noticed a conversation or a gesture or a bad posture or whatever. And you come and you're like, for example, I'm going to take it out of this kind of business so that maybe the example is a little bit more relatable. But you are in the, I don't know, like in the subway, and you are a doctor or orthopedic, whatever, or I don't know. And so you see someone with a bad posture and you approach and just say like, you know what, I noticed that you are sitting like this, and maybe do you feel like you have maybe some hip pain sometimes? And the other person is going to be, oh my god, yes, okay, maybe that's because you should be sitting this other way, or and that's a super generatory thing, to call it some way. And maybe that kind of approach for a generator works super good and can have like a super nice result for you, for that person. It can be awesome. And maybe for some people that's going to be like, no, I don't get it, or I don't feel it, or and they are going to be closed. Also, there's different kind of auras. For example, a manifestor has a closed aura, so approaching a manifestor is going to always be different than approaching, for example, another generator, or maybe a projector, or maybe a reflector. So it's going to be different in its different case. But for example, a generator is going to have a much higher rate of success in that kind of approach. It doesn't mean that a projector cannot do that and that maybe he's not going to get some success about it. Maybe. But that's not the most aligned way for a
Mm,
projector to operate. So it
yeah.
always doesn't feel quite right for us at
Yeah.
all. Just coming in and saying, even though you notice it,
Mhm.
so maybe you're going to be even much more powerful just thinking about it. Like maybe that person shouldn't be sitting like that. And you just like shut your mouth, and then the person approaches you like,
Mm.
you know what, I noticed whatever, blah 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 blah, could you give me some tips on? And then it's when you are being invited. And like that's actually such a powerful energy, like for us. And it's so different depending on the kind of energy type that you are. And these kind of interactions are so different depending on who you are energetically and who the person in front of you is energetically too. So that's a little bit like an example of how the
Yeah.
energy works in each of the cases. It's because the auras are different. So, for example, a generator aura, it's open and enveloping. So it's super warm. It receives people. It also gives to people that in that
It's
way.
important to remember that I have an aura, but so do you. And we're perceiving each other's energy. So that's why if a generator has this warm and inviting aura, it's logical or it's normal or it makes sense that if they approach that person in that way, the other person is going to receive it generally in a positive way. Whereas because
Exactly.
projectors have a
It's
different type of,
enveloping. So
yeah,
you come into another person's space and you are already bringing in, like bringing them in your aura. But we don't have that kind of aura. We have a penetrating and focused aura. So when we approach someone that didn't ask for it, it's like I say it like this, but it's like you are forcing your energy
It's
into
like a
another
point.
person.
It's like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
literally you're penetrating into their aura and not.
Actually, for me, it changed a lot the game when I saw wherever, or I don't know if I read it or I saw it or whatever, but the explanation for a projector is like you shouldn't ever do this because it's like an energetic rape. Like
No.
the fact that you see that doesn't give you permission to go in and just tell that person, you know what, you're doing wrong in this or that or that, or that doesn't give you permission. That doesn't give you permission. Only the person can give you the permission. And sometimes it's not a super direct invitation like, I invite you to share, but like you can feel when the person is inviting you. And
Yeah.
if you are not sure, you can always ask, like, do you want me to give you some advice? Or would you like me to share something that I see with you? Or whatever. And you
Yeah.
just make sure that the person is open to receiving. Because then that person is inviting you to share what you see. Because our gift is what we can see, our unique perspective. But if you're forcing it into people, like, yeah, the capacity that you see that, or that you see that person is your gift, but you don't have to impose it on the other person. Maybe that person is not prepared like to be discovered or to be unmasked, and he or she is not asking for that from you. So you have to respect it if you don't want to be rejected. If not,
Yeah.
okay, go ahead, but you're
If
gonna get rejection.
you don't give a shit, then just do it. Exactly. Okay. So I think that was really, really amazing insight. So thanks for sharing that. I think it really exemplifies what I was asking. So thanks. So now I think we can talk a little bit about you and how maybe I just remember telling you about human design and being like, oh, my friend told me this, and look, I'm a projector, and oh, let's do you. And I don't know if we did it in that moment or what. And then we
Yeah,
were
we
both
did
like,
in that moment.
we're both projectors. And I was like
And you
telling
are
you about
like,
it.
that's so weird
Also, I
that you're a
didn't know
projector.
anything. Also, I didn't know anything, so I couldn't explain anything to you. And you were like, okay. So I think you can now explain your side of it.
Yeah, it was so funny at the point because, well, actually, seeing it from the present moment is even funnier, you know? But yeah, I remember that I like we arrived to this convention, and so yeah, we were having this little time apart so that we can share some of our things as friends and all this. And so I remember that you asked me, so how have you been, or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, you know what? Because at that point, I was like just in the birds, in the middle of all my this process of like a spiritual super growth and reconnection. You remember? And so I told you something like, you know what, I've been like 1 month or 2 months already, because it started almost like, I don't know, at the end of August or around summer that year. It started like bigger and bigger and bigger and heavier and heavier and heavier and louder and louder and louder, like this process that for me it would be something like it would maintain me awake in the night, you know, like usually I'm a really good sleeper. If I go to sleep, like I just I'm not sleeping, I'm dead, like forget about me. Yeah, the world could end and
Yes.
I would be happy
Good luck with
sleeping, you know. Huh?
good luck waking Vicky up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, I'm not a bad awaker, you know, especially if someone comes in and it's like, "Hello, good morning." Like I wake up,
Yeah.
but I'm good to go to sleep good again, you know? So it's like, okay, yeah, good morning. So I'm super fine. And so I wouldn't be sleeping that much at that point. Like I would be sleeping like 3 or 4 or 5 hours at the maximum, like for 2 or 3 months. Like, and I would say it's not my mind that it's like working like crazy. It's something different, because I was just like not. It wasn't thoughts. I was not like having thoughts. It was like this consciousness that was like operating there, and so I wouldn't sleep because there were like processes happening but I wouldn't even have a thought about them. Like I don't know, I don't even know what's happening. At a point, I remember that I thought my mom must believe that I'm going like completely nuts, like I'm going actually crazy, like real crazy. And then I would like question myself, am I? Like I'm not even sure. Maybe there's something wrong that's happening, but no, not at all. And so, yeah, I arrived to there November, and so I was sharing this kind of thing with you, And so I told you there something like, you know what? I started seeing tarot and whatever because I was always into the zodiac, You know that I was always in. I'm a Scorpio, by the way. So yeah, I'm
Aries.
super proud of that. I've always been. Yeah, and Aries.
Yes.
And so, yeah, Zodiac led me eventually to Tarot, which I couldn't believe, like myself, because for our audience who's listening to us right now, I don't know how it's wherever you are, but in Spain, like
Yeah.
Tarot, it's like the worst thing ever. Like the
Yeah.
the most,
It,
how good it's in Spain, we would say like,
it just has like a really bad reputation. Or I think it's changing. I think for sure now it's not the same, but I think
yeah, of
for
course,
a
everything
long
is
time
changing.
it was like really scammy. It was like something that you would like see on TV channels in the middle of the night, like read your
Yeah,
tarot.
vulgar,
It's
chabacano. How would you
weird.
say?
Like
Yeah,
yeah.
pretty
Just like
vulgar.
low
And
class. Is low class the right word? Like
yeah, yeah. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, it's this thing of like this TV show that comes on in TV at 3 or 4 in the morning when there's nothing good to see anymore, and so
yeah.
people would call and ask things and pay money for that and have random answers, So this is the kind of feeling that we get in Spain, and so I
Yeah.
don't know exactly how, but watching YouTube videos about zodiac signs and characteristics, I came across a tarot channel. And so that was like, oh my God, like this resonance that we were talking about before, like, I cannot believe this thing is actually talking to me. Like, this is not possible at all. And so it was a secret, like, for almost 2 months that I told nobody that I was actually watching tarot. And then afterwards, I was courageous enough to tell my bestie, one of my besties in Madrid. And so afterward, you are right. And so I was in the middle of all this craziness, like the tarot thing and the other thing and the other thing. And I was just about to start a transcendental meditation at the point,
Mhm.
and we were talking about all these things. And so in this process of sharing, like, my life has been a complete crazy mess for the last, I don't know, 2 3 4 5 months already, and I don't even know what's happening, but I know it's taking me somewhere, because this was also like, I always say that I always was a spiritual person, because I didn't like to define myself as, for example, religious, because I pretty soon in my life knew that I wasn't following a religious path, but I, at the same time, always knew that I was spiritual, that I had this connection with something bigger than me and unknowable in a way, or that you have to discover. I don't know, like, yeah, this sense of spirituality, to say in a way, but since the point that I was 17 or 18, further, it was much more like a theory level. Like, I had this belief that I was, but I wasn't experiencing myself, like, with all of my body, my own spirituality. I have like this idea of how the universe or my cosmogony or my cosmology worked or operated, but I was not connected to that belief or that thoughts or that theories that I had. And so at this point, what I like to say, or what I consider that happened, it was like a reconnection. And so it was like a faith awakening, but like of my own faith, my own spirituality, that can feel different for everybody, even, o sea, independent of the fact that you're religious or not, your
Yeah.
spirituality, it's a personal process. It's a personal relationship and connection with the divine or the sacred or whatever it is for you. And so this what was happening at the point. I was reconnecting so deeply and so intensely with all this, like I was feeling it in my body. And yeah, I would feel hyper connected. And so then you come in and you're like, ah, you know what, so I had this super amazing coach session about this thing called human design with this person. But you know what, like I was like, oh, so interesting, and in my mind was like something like, maybe this is something interesting to explore like further in the time. But at the
Hmm.
point I was like so self-centered and focused like in my process,
Yeah.
that I understood that it was something related to business and I was much more on that spiritual side of it or whatever. And so I didn't like connect it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's so funny because now, like, and I consider myself to have been at the point and before and now after, like even more, that spirituality is everywhere. So why not in a business mentorship, But at the point I was like so focused and so obsessed with whatever was happening, like that were a lot of things inside of me, that it was something that I heard, but it was something that didn't like grounded at the point. And then I started the transcendental meditation because I was focused, so focused on that at the point. And I still meditate and I love it. And I would recommend it to everybody too.
Mhm.
Um, but
Same.
uh, 1 month or 2 months later from that, because I started meditating just for my birthday, which is 7th of November, and that was more or less the time of the convention, so it was like previous, like just previous the conversation that we had. And then the end of January that year, so 1 to 3 months later, 2 3 months later, I started seeing HD like everywhere in Instagram. And for me at the point, HD in Spanish, it's like high definition, like for the TV. And so I would say like, why is everybody in their Instagram profiles telling this thing like HD, high definition? I don't get it. And so then I went like a little bit further, and then I came across this fact. Actually, I was like liking posts probably of like
Yeah.
human design content, and I didn't even know
That it
that
was
the
human design.
algorithm was like HD, 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 like in your face. And so I finally got it. And when I said like human design, I was like, oh, this is the thing Kimi told me about. And at that point, thank God, I knew enough to know that if this thing was reaching me again, it was something that I should look at. And
Mhm.
so then I found this profile of this girl that I really liked, Bethany, and she was my first mentor. And yeah, I just connected with her. I don't know if I liked a post or something. Then she reached me. So yeah, again, I was invited into human design actually, because it was my mentor. She's a manifesting generator. She approached me and I was invited. So
Mhm.
this is an example of how the perfect connection energetically should ideally work. I was not pursuing, I just I just let something that was for me find me, and
Mhm.
she asked me into it. And do you know anything about human design? No, blah blah blah. Let's jump on a discovery call. Okay, whatever. And so that's how I started. And then I started like learning like for myself, but then afterwards and it's been a process of 3 years already. And so
Mhm.
I've been continuously studying, but more importantly than studying, because I like theory is super important. And for example, as I said in the other episode, there are profiles that are super linked for a lot of study and theory and all that, and that's beautiful. And that's something that you should like take care of and enhance. But also it cannot be the only thing. You have to experience, because if that knowledge or that theory is not you cannot apply it like to your life, to your way of living and all these things, it's not useful whatsoever. It's not useful for you. And I always like to say that true spirituality, it's embedded in the tapestry of life, of living. And so it's an act. It's not an idea, it's not a concept, it's not a thought. Being spiritual is something that you can do in whatever you are doing when you are connected to yourself. So that's
Mhm.
a little bit the point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was my experience.
So tell us more about a little bit just of the type of education that you did, like the because you've done more than one course at this point, right?
Yeah, yeah. So at the point, I went into this program because it was not actually only about human design. My coach, B or Bethany, she's awesome, and she was just starting or launching this program that was called the Trust Method, and so
Hmm.
it had to do with human design, but also with PNL and like
Hmm.
reprogramming yourself to connect in a further level to your authenticity. So it had a lot to do, or everything to do actually, with becoming your most authentic self, being able to express yourself that way, and also trusting that everything is perfectly designed in you and around you so that everything works for you. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, it was a really deep program in that sense, that I went through a lot with my two profile side on it, because I always do things like this. It's like I go into things and I have a really intuitive approach to them. Like, for example, I remember that we would have conversations, we still have them, with the group of girls of the human design. They're like the trust program. And we were like a bunch of girls, like 8, 12, 15, 20. And we were growing, and expanding also the community. And so, yeah, and we would have these conversations, and sometimes they would be like, for example, worried about, like, I'm not following the program, or I didn't do the whatever piece, or I don't know. And I would be like, just be jumping around the program, and, oh, this sounds interesting, I'm gonna go into that, and I'm gonna go into that. And I would always tell B that it seemed like, everything that I went into was like a confirmation of whatever I was already experiencing inside of myself. And for example, tarot is also a super personal experience for each and every person. And what I've
Hmm.
come to see is that life operates a lot like that for me. Like, I have this intuitive inner knowing first, and then I have this piece of untangible confirmation. Like, you can believe it or not, but it's a synchronicity, and it's telling you that you are actually in the pathway that's meant for you at the moment. And this doesn't mean that it's going to be the same thing in 1 year time or 6 months time, but at the moment you are having this feeling, or you are having this realization, or you are having this insight or whatever, and then there's another piece that's coming into you, like, or in front of you, and you are clearly seeing the connection. And so it's telling you, yeah, it is like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're asking for a confirmation, and what do you want? A person like knocking in your door and telling you, yeah, that thought that you had 2 moments ago. So it doesn't work like that, guys. You have to be open. Like, when you ask for something, then you have to be open to receive it, because if
Yeah.
not, you are asking for something. Yeah, and sometimes it has, or comes with a price to pay. Like, always, you are asking for something, and it's going to ask something of you on return. So are you willing to put the effort? Are you willing to put the trust? Are you willing to put some old beliefs apart? Are you willing to sacrifice the person that you were? Because we are always changing, and we
Hmm.
are muting and transmuting into new people every moment. And so, yeah, it was a beautiful process. And yeah, I started applying it to myself, and then
Hmm.
I started sharing it a lot with you, with
Yeah,
my close
exactly.
ones.
And that's
Yeah, I was
where,
super
and then
excited.
the next, and then I don't know if it was the next conference, again, every 3 months, or the next, where you were like, Kimmy, oh my
Now I
God,
know more.
now I know more. And I'd be like, cool, I still know the same stuff as last time. Tell me more. And then it was funny because it became the complete opposite. Something that I kind of showed you in my very primitive, obviously, and superficial understanding, then you were able to kind of throw that back to me and give me so much information and so much insight. It was mostly, I remember when we were in Greece. Remember that trip to Greece?
Yeah, that trip was awesome.
Where we really talked a lot about human design and what you've been learning, and we looked at my chart and everyone else's chart, and it was really
Yeah.
interesting. I still technically haven't gotten a full chart reading from you, just bits and
Not
pieces
yet.
here and there over time, but that's part of the pod, so it's all good. It'll
Yeah,
happen.
and it's gonna happen because now we've got it programmed for the podcast. So it's gonna be super interesting that actually your first complete reading is gonna be on air.
On air. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so cool to learn what I the to learn what I have learned so far about my design with you has been really really life changing. And yeah, actually, human design saved my relationship with my person,
Fiance.
with my little fiance. So if it wasn't for human design and Vicky, maybe I wouldn't be in Dubai right now.
Well, if it wasn't for yourself, and here is another full circle moment, because you showed me the tool that would actually later on help you.
Yeah.
And so that's a return again. So you did something for me, you gifted me something that actually became a gift for you
Hmm.
later on. And so that's
Yeah.
so beautiful too, like to witness
Yeah.
and also to share. And so that's what I think life is about. And life is about that, human design is about that, connection is about that, relationships are about that. And
Yeah.
I think like the new age that we are coming and bringing in as humanity, as a collective, has to do with all of that. It's understanding that there's a deeper layer of our connections in the world and that we can operate from that place instead of just living in the surface and having this feeling that we are not able to completely see what's underneath. Like we have this capacity to actually be living at the both dimensions at the same time, and it's perfectly fine, and it's actually super fun. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an exciting process. And then after all that and sharing a lot, like from the first moment I knew I would love to get to have such deep knowledge about this that I could actually share it with people in a way that's useful for them in the same way that has been useful for me.
Hmm.
And so later on, again, I was invited into another human design course, which actually was becoming a certified reader course.
Yeah.
And my first mentor was a manifesting generator, uh, 1-3 profile. And in this case, my mentor was a projector. And so, sorry about that, guys. It's my cell phone that should be silenced, but it's not. I'm going to silence it now. And
Silence.
so, yeah, wow. And so she was a projector. And well, she's actually a projector, still is. And yeah, she has this online program that you can follow through. And actually,
Hmm.
I learned a lot too. But it was the same mess kind of way of approaching the program and saying one thing and then one another thing. And actually, I haven't even finished it like completely
Fully.
yet. Yeah,
Yeah.
not fully. But also that's a super beautiful, nice way for me to approach things in which I let myself be guided by life and the moment and just respond like as a generator. I also respond to things. So that came into my life and I started learning, and then I was invited like to share what I already knew. And then there's like this process where everything comes together. And also that has always been my way of educating myself in different kind of stuff in life, because information comes to me and I don't feel like I have to be absolutely prepared like to use what I already know. So
Mhm.
I already know this and I can use this piece until I get, or on the meanwhile that I get the subsequent piece, and it will arrive when I'm prepared to receive it. And I have this
Mhm.
trust also that it's going to happen this way. And so
Yeah.
I guess that I will be studying human design like for the rest of my life and getting deeper and deeper and deeper and as deep as I can get. But I will
Yeah.
study it like from the practice of the human life experience, like in the actual life, and then also like complemented with another studies, and I never get rid of this curiosity of just wanting to know more. Like
Mhm.
that's who I am. So yeah,
Yeah.
and that's my
Yeah.
personal experience. And
Yeah.
here we are.
And here we are. Exactly. And then over time, we kept talking about it and we kept talking about it. And like we mentioned in our first episode about, obviously what this podcast is about and how it came to be, Vicky and I were talking about how we both have this one channel, which is called the podcast channel. And
Yeah.
also, Vicky is a self-projected projector, which means that she talks a lot. Or, well, that's not what it means. It means that she
Well, it
processes,
actually means that too.
but what it means is that she processes information and understands the world through talking about it and hearing herself talk. So sometimes when you talk to Vicky, you see her have realizations in real time as she's talking, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that
Which
actually
means,
happens a lot.
no joke, podcasting is the channel for her. Um,
Yeah.
so it just felt like such a, it just flew, it flowed. What is the
Yeah,
past? Um,
it flew, no?
it flew.
It doesn't matter. The fact is that it landed.
Flowed. It came to beautiful moment where we
Yeah.
said, yeah, let's do it. Let's start a podcast. Well, actually, it didn't start that way. We decided to start a business, right? We decided that
Well,
together we
but
could build.
actually, I visited you in Valencia last April. Now it's
Yeah.
December. So
Yeah.
it has almost been a year. It has been a crazy year.
Well,
And yeah, there we were talking about this. And it was also a little bit after that conversation about you and Matt and the relationship. And so then I visited you both in April in Valencia.
April.
And so
Yeah.
we also had this feedbacking about what was shared, what you could learn from that, and all these things. And also, we were further looking into your chart, like, oh, this is so interesting.
Mhm.
Oh, we shared
Yeah.
this. Oh, we shared that. And so that was like this moment of like, yeah, the podcast, yeah, the podcast. And I told you, I've been wanting to do something like a podcast for so long already, and you were like, we should do a podcast, and you already had done a little bit like of podcasting already, but I hadn't. And so yeah, I was waiting for the invitation,
Yeah. No,
and
I
then you
mean, it's
invited me,
crazy.
and then we were like, we
No,
will do it.
it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, is it crazy? It's perfect, but it's so crazy to think about
It's
how
perfect
all of the,
crazy or crazy perfect.
yeah, of all the things that I have learned over the past 5, 6 years in my professional career and building businesses and failing at businesses and working for companies and volunteering for different organizations, all the skills that I've picked up randomly and how together all those skills are exactly the complement to you for us to build this business,
Yeah, it's actually
right?
crazy. That's
The podcasting. Why did I start a podcast? So random, right? It was just like a conversation I had with a friend that I met through a networking event in Valencia. She has a podcast and she was telling me about how podcasting is the future and how it's such a great marketing tool and blah 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 blah. And for me, I I was looking for a way of sharing my thoughts that was in longer format than an Instagram, because Instagram is so short. I felt like I could never explain myself and everything was always misconstrued or misunderstood. And I didn't want to start a YouTube channel because I don't want, because it felt like a lot of work to start a YouTube channel. So my friend was like, "You should, I think podcasting sounds like the perfect thing for you because it's long format. It's just you in front of your computer. You don't even have to turn on the camera if you don't want to. There's plenty of podcasts that are not video, right? I think for us, it makes sense to also, since we're here, to record the video, but we could perfectly, we could just as easily just do audio. And so I started podcasting about environmental issues and water and different things that were coming up for me in my journey. And it was like a pretty successful podcast. I mean, you're not going to listen to it in any list or anything like that, but I had many listeners and I had really positive feedback and I invited people to my podcast. So, and then to think that that's kind of led to this, and it's just crazy, you know, and
Amazing.
yeah, community building. Like I started volunteering for an organization in 2019 building a community for expat women in Valencia, and now I build communities literally for a living. You know, it's just it's all led to this point, which is really
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Also, again, that's like the synchronicity power.
exactly. And how, you know, when you came to visit us in April and we were really thinking about it and we were neither of us have ever been one to once to force, you know? That's something that's really interesting. Never forced anything, but we were trying to make it work and it just like wasn't working, right? Like things
Yeah,
weren't
yeah, we were thinking about a title and we weren't sure, and but you know
yeah.
what, like exactly that. We didn't force it. We were
No,
like, and
we're like,
again, we trusted that it will fall into place when it's ready.
yeah,
And that's exactly what happened. Like a couple
yeah,
of months later, you have like this experience and this
yeah,
realization, and you're like, you know what, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And then everything fell into place. And then afterward,
exactly.
when we already had like the project that we are actually now working around and in and with, um, then we had like, you know what, we have the theme, we have the topic, the things that we want to talk about, we have the name. And so all the things that were a problem before just
All of a sudden
unfolded
weren't.
so
Yeah,
naturally. And
yeah.
that's also a beautiful thing, and it's also like a hope message for the future. If you that are listening to us right now maybe are in a place in your life where you're thinking that nothing seems to fall into place, and sometimes it just needs a little bit of time, and just gets a little bit longer, but it doesn't matter. Like, just trust that you are building yourself in the process to come to that place, and everything, yeah, unravels and envelops so beautifully. And it's so beautiful to be able to discover, like with surprise, your own path, and how beautifully and perfectly everything fitted in, like from the beginning, even though you didn't know
Can't see
already.
it.
But it just
Yeah.
happened that way. And it happened that way because you gave yourself permission to wait for the right moment, and to
Mhm.
just be a witness of that beautiful thing in life. Yeah.
Amazing. That's the perfect place to stop.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining for this episode of Charted Territory. It's been a pleasure, and we will see you on the
In the
next
next
point of the map.